both are contributing to this in your own way. And how we're showing up how are we impacting each other, right? In making this situation worse. And then we got to figure out, okay, what's the very good reasons partners are doing these things in negative cycles, like protesting, defending, shutting down, getting stuck in arguing details without really addressing the emotional issue, attacking each other, criticizing each other. What is the very good reason? What's fueling that? What are you trying to accomplish? And then I've got to come in and give partners better tools to get those emotional needs met so they don't have to keep going into these moves that aren't working. And at the end of this, we expect that as partners are learning to do these skills, that the relationship symptoms start to decrease because you start building up safety instead of tearing safety down in the way that they're communicating. I like to say disagreements don't create secure attachment. Having an emotionally unsafe interactions and communication around those disagreements is what creates insecure attachment.
That's true. Yeah. And for our listeners who might be new to the EFT, how does it
Mhm.
differ from the other types of therapies?
Well, a lot of the other types of therapies, one, they just focus on like the behavior and the words you're saying without
Yeah.
really understanding more about why are we needing to behave in these ways and use these words. And a lot of times, other types of therapies, there's a few different things, right? One is that the focus isn't so much on vulnerability. It's more focused on, again, just sort of saying things in a new way. Um,
Mm.
and even if they are teaching you to be vulnerable and say things like, I'm sad, a lot of other therapies are missing the person having the felt experience of sad, right? Like a lot of people aren't really used to sitting with their vulnerability and speaking from vulnerability in their body instead of speaking about vulnerability from their head, if that makes any sense. And then, really, I think what really, in addition to the emotional and vulnerability focus in EFT, and understanding to going backward and understanding, how people kind of get to this place in their relationships based on the emotional climates of their childhood. There's this other piece to it that EFT is very organized. It has a very organized way of going about the transformation process. Sometimes some other therapies that don't have as much structure, they'll put the cart before the horse. They'll try to get couples to have conversations that they're absolutely not ready to have. And so that's been a real journey for me in EFT, is just learning how to really time what I'm doing with the couple and structure it.
That's awesome, I have to say. And also
Mhm.
like the role of pleasure in this secure attachment, right?
Mhm.
So what do you think? Like, how does pleasure, be it physical or emotional or even
Mhm.
spiritual, tie into the creation of secure attachment? What do you say?
Mhm. Well, so, one of when we think of vulnerable emotions, we have, fear and we have sadness, but we also have pleasure and joy. I mean, that's a vulnerable emotion that you really need to feel safe with someone in order to feel relaxed enough to have a mutual, fulfilling, pleasurable experience. And so I need couples, if I want them to be secure with each other, part of that security is closeness. So I need them to not just be able to, connect on their pain in their from their painful parts, right? I need them to be able to connect with their joy parts also, right? Because not only does the joy and the pleasure create bonding experiences, because that's what bonding is sharing emotions with someone. Um, not only does it do that, but it also, these bonding experiences give resiliency and safety to the relationship. And the more safety you have, the more you are able to experience pleasure with someone to begin with.
Exactly, lovely. And do you find that couples often overlook this connection? I mean, uh, if you can
Mhm.
share from your experiences.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, for the vast majority of struggling couples, I mean, they're to the degree that they're struggling, they're in a constant state of disconnection. I mean, anytime you're in a place in your body where you're not feeling fully safe in the relationship, you're not kind of consistently feeling like you're heard or understood or like you can reach to your partner for those emotional needs to be met and they're going to respond to you positively, you are in a state of disconnection. Some healthier couples, they're in a state of connection more often than not, and sometimes they have ruptures where they do feel disconnected. I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling valuable right now, I'm not feeling appreciated right now. But the difference between the struggling couple and the not struggling couple is the healthy couple can repair. They can get, when these ruptures happen, they know they have the skills to get back to their state of connectedness. So, I mean, I don't really think it's possible to have a thriving relationship without a consistent feeling of connectedness, which is the secure attachment. The secure attachment is a consistent state of connection and closeness and safety.
Wow, that's great. That's lovely. Yeah. And also like in today's swipe right culture, swipe
Mhm.
we always used to do swipe right, right, right. So how can
Yes.
someone how do I put like how can someone cultivate deeper and more meaningful connection instead of setting the surface level relationships?
Mhm. Well, it's hard because you really have to spend time with that person. I mean, there's really no way around repeated interactions with someone to get close to them. And so really what the question is this someone I'm interested in being close with based on what I'm reading here about them? Am I getting some signs here that they have the ability to be close? They're not just kind of living in the surface areas of life. And then are they able, once you start spending time with someone, you got to learn what to look for as far as what closeness actually is, right?
Mm.
What connectedness actually is. A lot of people, they just haven't ever experienced real connection. And so they don't even know what to look for. And when we don't know what to look for, we just start looking for surface level lists. Do they look the right way? Do they have the right job? Do they want the same things out of life as I do? And so I think that, real closeness comes from, again, it's like being really seen, feeling understood, feeling like you can relax enough to enjoy pleasurable experiences together, feeling like your needs matter to the person, like there's a balance of wants and needs here. And so I want to help people get really explicit and clear about not only what that is, but how it feels in your body. A lot of people will be around someone and not really feel good in their body, but have such a disconnect between their awareness of their body and what's going on in their body that they miss a lot of red flags. And so yeah, so more than anything, I think that you can't really get out of knowing if someone is going to be able to experience full connection in a relationship without having repeated interactions with them.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what's so hard because in the past we did have repeated interactions with people before we kind of had to decide if we want to go forward with them. Now we have to look at a screen and decide we want to go forward with them before having any experience, a felt sense of experience in interacting with them. So that's tough.
Exactly, exactly. And also like one thing I hear a lot, like I don't want to be dependent on my partner. And this is
Hmm.
the statement we often get to hear. Like, so how do you address the balance between independence and interdependence in a healthy
Hmm.
relationship?
Well, the first thing I would want to know when someone says that to me is how are you defining dependence? Help me understand more about what that word even means to you, right? Does it mean that you don't want to be enmeshed, which is we're too close, we don't spend time apart, we don't think differently in any way, we don't really have separate selves. If that's what the person is saying, then my job is to come in and say, "Hey, that's really not what we're going for here. That's not closeness. That's the opposite of closeness. It just looks different." from more obvious states of disconnection. And then, the second thing is we're going for interdependence. What's the point of being in a relationship if we don't have some dependency on the other person for the good things? I depend
Yeah.
on you for some reasonable emotional support. I depend on you for enjoying life together and spending time together. I depend on you for help moving, making a good life together and, achieving goals together, right? If you really get down to the nuts and bolts, anybody that wants to be in a relationship does want some level of interdependence. They maybe just don't understand what that actually means. If you don't want interdependence, you don't really need to be in a relationship at all, right? And if that's the case, probably what that person is saying isn't, I don't want to be in a relationship. They're saying, I don't want to lose my entire sense of self. So,
Mhm.
interdependence is kind of that balance between we've got this relationship with each other and we put time into that and connecting and working through our disagreements, but we've
Right.
also got our own selves where we
Mhm.
can experience life independent of each other. We're
Yeah.
not too, emotionally dependent or, I can only feel good if you're okay, right? That's not healthy.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So, what's the one practice that you would recommend for the partners who want to repair their fight but don't know where to start?
Mhm. I think that the first thing that they need to do is really kind of recognize what the attachment issues are here. I mean, that's why I wrote the book, right? Is the first part of the book is saying, hey, here's what insecure attachment looks like, and here's how it's going to show up in conflict and arguments and in trying to repair and not being able to get there. And then I kind of go into, and here's how these negative cycles work based on these insecure attachment styles. Nobody, people who have secure attachment, they don't need to engage in negative cycles because for a variety of reasons. But so the first thing is understanding what are our attachment insecurities? What does that look like? How is that impacting us? And what do these negative cycles look like? Right. And then part three would be how do we not do negative cycles?
Mhm.
Right. And when we aren't doing negative cycles, not only are we able to repair because we're doing the things that prevent them, but we're also building up attachment security between us that makes less conflict happen to begin with. So we have less repairing to do. Now, with that said, every couple out there, the healthiest couple out there is going to have ruptures, right? So, but then the other piece of this is the self work. I mean, you can't really do this relationship work without also doing the self work that's required to be able to do new things in the relationship. So in EFT, I'm always working with both. I'm kind of like 50% working with each person on their own work. How am I going to get more emotionally engaged? How am I going to get more emotionally self-regulated so I can do new things? And then I'm working on the relationship part, which is doing those new things with each other.
So, exactly. Lovely. I really love Julie. What an insightful and inspiring conversation, like from attachment styles to rekindling pleasure. And definitely, you have given us a lot of to think about and act on. So, for everyone who is listening, here's the takeaway, like, relationships thrive and we show up with the curiosity, courage, and the compassion. So, for our partners and for ourselves as well. So, if you're curious about to dive deeper, then check out Julie's book, Secure Love, and her platform, The Secure Relationship. And hey, don't just listen, take the action as well. So identify
Absolutely.
your style, your attachment style, and have that honest conversation, or maybe simply start noticing your own patterns, because small steps actually create the big transformations. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning into Pleasure Principles. And if you have loved this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who actually care about, and definitely share your review to us because it helps us bring you more life-changing conversations like this. So, until next time, this is your host, Avik, signing off. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. That was great.